So guys, tune into the show. Don't miss it because it's going to be an amazing show. You are going to be touched. You're going to be amazed. You're going to be excited. It's Thursday, 11 o'clock on a Thursday. The Message Talk Show with Alex Gordon. Yes, don't miss it. So guys, tune into the show. Don't miss it because it's going to be an amazing show. You are going to be touched. You're going to be amazed. You're going to be excited. It's Thursday, 11 o'clock on a Thursday. The Message Talk Show with Alex Gordon. Yes, don't miss it.
Good morning, folks. Good morning. It is Thursday. It is that day again. You know what? I look forward to Thursday more than any other day now. I look forward to Thursday morning, man. And because, on Thursday morning, great things happen. On Thursday morning, you get yourself a cup of coffee. You get yourself a cup of tea. And you call your friends. You call your worst enemies, man. You call the people who don't like you, yes, and tell them to tune into the Message Talk Show. Why? Because something may drop in their spirit and change them. Transformation, yes. Because you know what? They're still your friends. And you still want the best for them. Yes? So we're tuning into the Message Talk Show today. And welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest in house. Traveling all the way, guys. All the way. But yet still not leaving her house. Hey, my dear. Good morning, Dr. Rochelle Carr. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am super excited to be here. As I always tell people, I am supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So even at 5 a.m.
You just blown me already. You're blowing the first word out of your mouth. Repeat that. You are super
califragilisticexpialidocious.
You know what? I'll have to go on the training school, one of your courses, just to learn to give that one there. Yes, but it's great to have you on the show this morning, and we're still in the midst of what we were talking about last year. We're still in the challenges. We're still in the trenches, trying to come out, trying to get out. So, folks, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea. Now, switch off all those other things you have on your browser. Switch them off. Mute the mobile phone. Where's mine? Where's my mobile phone? I better mute it as well. There was one show, my phone went off, and I was in the middle of what I was saying, and I'm thinking, my, I can't stop to answer that phone. Shut up, phone! And the phone was just ringing. But you know what? I've muted it now. Folks, mute that phone, right? You call your friends, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of water, and tune into the show. So welcome to the Message Talk Show today, guys. We believe that passionate and mission-centered individuals bring change. One person at a time, two people at a time, through their webinars, through everything they do. And it all happens through their messaging. Yes, and my name's Alex Gordon. I work with people to help them speak and present and get their message out. Guys, more than ever now, it's time for you to step up to the forefront of change. Yes. And you're mission-centered. Yes. So tune into the Message Talk Show. So today, we're going to be talking about the shift in leadership, part two. Part one was enormous. Part one was magnificent. Part one just blew my mind. It blew my mind because it spoke about some things that were happening in our world. And the only thing that could happen to bring any change is leadership. And since we spoke, you've had a change in government.
Yes, we have.
You've had a change in government. My God. But does the change in government really bring any change to local people's lives?
The trickling down stops very high up. We are still, even in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the change, people are still out of work. People are still just trying to make it day to day. And so where they're saying our economy is growing, there's some people that are not seeing that. And so you ask the question, where is the leadership? Where's the shift and where's the ship? And so where we are excited, yes, the first African American um, uh, female vice president, but we're
Yeah.
still looking for that leadership. The celebration for me is over. I'm ready for people to come up or people to get back to work, people not starving, figuring out how they're going to pay bills or put food on the table. And so it's, we're digging ourselves out of a hole, and it's everybody's looking at leadership
Yeah.
in all parts of the government, and it's a struggle because it's the infighting and it's the bickering. It's like kids on the playground. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, you
Big
guys,
kids.
grow up and do what you were elected to do. And that's the sad part, is because you don't see leadership. You don't see leadership.
And you talked about the hole just then. The hole is so big that the hole is like trillions, trillions, trillions. Man, if I was to write it down, I couldn't hold it on a piece of paper.
I don't think we learned that number in school.
My, and you're thinking, how are we going to get out of this hole? But in the midst of this, you have been in the trenches, digging, pushing, and you run something called Coffee Mornings. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so every Thursday, not at 5 a.m. though, but every Thursday at 11:59 Central Standard Time, I do Coffee Break Thursday, which I call your 15-minute recharge, steps to being your best you. And it's 15 minutes of power, it's 15 minutes of recharging you, it's 15 minutes of resetting your mindset, resetting what you have thought in the past, releasing barriers, releasing roadblock blocks. And I always give you steps, action steps. So I give you information, but then you walk away with applicable action steps that you can implement in your life right then and there. And so I have been doing this for like 2 years, and just very powerful feedback of people saying their lives have changed, their lives are changing. I had one lady text me saying, I'm now in touch with a little girl inside of me. And she is growing and she is loving herself. And so that's what it's about. It's literally 15 minutes, but it's so very powerful of helping people change. And so I always begin with the fact that we're all leaders. And so just because you don't have a title doesn't mean you're a leader, because I talk a lot about leadership and who are you, and what do you bring to the table, or the respect or empowerment. So it's all different titles, but it all goes back to you empowering yourself, you looking within. I always say your purpose is within you. And so as a leader, are you digging deep enough to understand what's stamped into your DNA? And a lot of people are not. A lot of people are surface living. And so how do we tap deep inside? And so that's what Coffee Break does. In that little 15 minutes, I help you tap a little bit deeper than where you normally would go. And so it's exciting. I love it. I love the conversations that I have afterwards with email questions that I get on a weekly basis. So it's exciting.
A lot of people are surface living.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, living on the surface?
You're not reaching your full potential. You are getting by. And because you've done it so long, you think that's the right purpose. That's the road you're supposed to be on. That's now your incorrect GPS. And so when you begin to dig deeper, you recognize sometimes you're on the wrong path. I deal with a lot of clients that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but are unhappy because they're not on the right career path. They're not in the right space that their DNA said that they were purposed to be on. So they're scratching the surface of life. And so we have a lot of people in the grave that are woulda, coulda, shouldas. And so I try to get people to not get to the end of life and have more what ifs than what was. And so we have to wake up and realize that, are we really not really living our true purpose? Are we really being the leader, meaning without the title, that we were called to be? Are we influencing people? Are we leading people to the table? And when we get them there, are we empowering them? Or are we just scratching the surface? And so it's about moving people to a different level, to a different place. And that's what Coffee Break does. That's what
Wow.
I love to do. And again, I don't want surface living. I want people to go deeper. I want people to understand what they were created to be, who they were created to be.
But imagine you're going somewhere, and you have the GPS on, and you're relying on the GPS to take you to to the destination that you've plugged in, and you're saying to me now that the GPS is stuck.
Stuck.
It's stuck. It's
Stuck.
not going. You're not moving fast enough. You're not going where you need to go, and something's held you there for years. And even though you're earning the money, you're just not
You're stuck.
there.
You're stuck.
Can you actually believe that people after 5, 6, 7, 8 years of university, training in professions, and getting to the point in their lives where they can't move because they're stuck?
Yes.
That is terrible.
I see it, you see it, we see it every day, that they've gotten so complacent and so stagnant where they are. It's just natural now. It's natural that you show up without any expectation. You show up just because it's the thing to do. I show up because I'm supposed to be at work. I have no expectation. I have no vision. I have nothing. I just show up. And when you just show up, then what happens? You stagnant. You are complacent. And you hate when Friday comes, because you know Monday is coming again. And you know you have to go back to that same space.
And you know why that's happening? Because they're not taking the right coffee breaks.
That's it. Or they need to take some empowerment classes.
Well, coffee breaks lead to empowerment classes.
Yes.
Because if you can be empowered in 15 minutes, imagine what working on a program, working with you will do to change your perspectives.
Yeah.
Now that leads me to something that you dropped last year. You dropped on us last year, and I never forgot that. When you told us about one of your tutors, one of your little tutors that you were getting information from, and that you were speaking on platforms and quoting this young man, and his key was about perspectives.
Yes.
Now give us some perspectives on what's happening now.
Well, first of all, I will give shout outs to my nephew, Eli, because he is my go-to guy. He drops such heavy jewels he's 9 now, that I'm always listening to him, because he sees things from a different perspective. And his perspective is so wide, and it's so clear, and it's so unfiltered. And the last time we had a conversation, and I think I used this about the respect piece. And he says, Auntie, how can people lead if there's no respect? And I was like, are you really saying this? And he was like, yeah. He said, adults are always talking about respect this and respect that, but I just can't respect you because you're an adult. I was like, wow. He said, I respect you because you bring something to the table. And I said, you know what, nephew, I'm going to use that. And as he always says, well, Auntie, don't forget my commission. But can you imagine that an 8-year-old, because he was almost 9, but an 8-year-old would have that type of conversation and understanding of respect and leadership? And that you just with a title don't just get respect, but it's something that you're offering, that you are drawing to people, that you earn respect. It's just mind blowing. And the other day I was talking to him via FaceTime, and he says, Auntie, I want you to see my shirt. And I was like, oh, let me see your shirt. It said future leader. And I said, I need to get you a new shirt. I love that shirt, but you're a leader now.
Wow.
And so he was like, that's right, Auntie. And I said, okay, I'm getting you a new shirt. And so He understands
Yeah.
the concept of what leadership means. You know, it's not the title. I teach a youth group. I have a youth conference that talks about I lead, I choose. And we dispel those falsities of leadership, you know, in helping young people understand that you are a leader right where you are. You don't need a title, you don't need an office, you really don't need income. It's who you are influences in the community, in your neighborhood, in your school, in your church, um, clubs that you participate in. Who are you influencing? Who's showing up and how are you showing up? That's leadership. How are you showing up? And then with that, that's how respect is earned. That's how respect is given. And what is respect? You know, we broke that down last
Yes,
time.
I remember that one. Throw it out again. Throw it out again. It's worthy.
It's respect, resourceful, ethical, selfless, peacemaker, enthusiasm, caring, and teachable. That's respect. And if you don't have those type of characteristics, do you really have respect? Do people really respect you? I was talking to a friend earlier in the wee hours in the morning, probably trying to keep me up. And she said, it's a shame when people would rather be liked than respected. I was like, ooh, I'm not paying you for commission on that, but I'm going to use that this morning because it's so many people that just want to be liked and want everybody to like them. But at the end of the day, nobody respects you. Like does not equate respect. And so when you have a bunch of leaders that just want to be liked, there's nothing really getting done. There's no empowerment. There's no influence. You just got a lot of robots following around you, liking you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sirs. But you're not respected. And so if you want to be respected, there will be people that will not like you, but they will respect you. And so we have to, as leaders, not worry about what people are saying or how people think about us. It's about what are we at the end of the day. You might not like me, but guess what? I've empowered you and influenced you enough to be a better you.
We've built an economy on the whole thing of likability. And so you vote for me because you like me and not because of the values which I bring to the table. People don't bother to read the blueprint or dig any deeper. They just base it on charismatic likability.
Yes.
And so because you like me, it empowers me to do whatever I think I want to do.
Yeah.
And
we see that in our government, don't we? We see that in corporations. We see that in every aspect of life. Like, I like you. Oh my God, she is so charismatic. But what's behind? Let's peel that onion skin back. What's really behind that door, number one? And that's the part that we miss, is that you could be likable, but now that you're in office, are you producing? And that's the thing I think in the US we see is like, okay, we like you. You got 7 million plus votes or whatever, but are you producing? Because now we're waiting on the promises so we can respect you. We liked you, but now we're trying to move to respect, and we're not getting in return what you said. And so now we're stepping back. And so, and that's leadership everywhere. We like you. Does that matter? No, I want to respect you. I might not agree with you, because we can disagree without being disagreeable. That's good. But do I really respect you? Or do you show up with integrity? Do you show up with the values to move the company or the organization or even me forward? Wow. Do I respect you?
One perspective you shared last year, and you were talking about we were in the midst of the pandemic, and you one of the statements you made, you said that if you're a person of color and your employer hasn't rang you to find out how you are, then they don't really care about you. And it's just the whole thing about care. So we're in the heart of the pandemic and we're looking for care. Now we're on the verge of coming out. How does that care translate itself now in corporations, in businesses, in even churches?
It's the same. And I'll bring this in. Have you been invited to the table? Have you been invited to that place where decisions are being made in every aspect of life? You know, and I think the problem is that we're waiting for the invitation instead of pulling up our own chair. That's what Shirley Chisholm said. If they don't give you a seat, bring a folding chair.
Walk in a folding chair inside your car.
And the thing of it is that we have to show up. That's coffee break this morning. Is that what do you bring to the table? And we all bring something to the table. And we might not get an invitation, but we have to show up anyway. If they, tell them move over. I'm coming to the table. Because so often we try to make everybody a robot. That's no. Even when I growing up, I used to hear this, this is America, we're a melting pot. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of a melting pot. Melting pots, everything gets skewed, it gets together, it gets meshed together. No, I want to be a stew pot. I want to be a stew pot because guess what? I can appreciate the flavor of the stew, the carrot, the potato, the beef. I eat chicken, but for those beef eaters, but you anticipate every flavor. That's the stew pot. And when you have a stew pot mentality, it doesn't matter who's sitting at the table because you appreciate every flavor that's coming. That's care. That means that I appreciate your culture. I appreciate your voice. I appreciate who you are coming to the table.
And that point is significant there about appreciating the people's voice, because there's a lot of voices that are not heard because they're not at the table. They haven't had that invitation and they don't see themselves worthy enough to even ask for the invitation to get to the table.
And that's where leadership comes in. And again, when you cannot wait on leadership title, but you have to make sure that the other people that are leaders pull those people in. And we have to be empowered enough to understand that, look, come to the table. And when you show up, pull them in, you come to the table, because we have to begin to reaffirm people when the CEO, the managers, supervisors are not. Those untitled leaders have to begin to, hey, come to the table. Well, I didn't get invited to the table. Show up at the table. And I think that's the empowering piece, that we are able to tell people that, look, your voice matters. We care. And I think what's missing is we're always waiting for somebody else to tell us that. When you got to sometime encourage and empower yourself. You got to sometime take, your right hand, put it over the left shoulder and be like, hey, you're okay. You got to show up. It's okay. You don't need a title, just show up. And I think people are always reluctant to do that, like you said, because they were like, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Well, I didn't get an invitation. Who cares? Get your folding chair and show up at the table.
That's crazy. That's crazy that you'd imagine that 21st century, after everything we've been through, after everything we've been through, we've seen the climb to educate ourselves, and we're still stuck at the point whereby we're not really at the table. We're not really helping to make those decisions, and decisions are being made in our communities for us, but not by us. What is the most significant change that you think should happen in 2021?
Ooh, I'm about to go here. The church has to speak up. I'm going back to where I love. If the church and the community does not make any noise, there's silence.
When you say the church has to speak up, what do you really mean then? What is
I
it?
mean, every single pastor that stands up and proclaims the good news of Jesus needs to open their mouth and make noise in their community. And I think when the churches make noise, the community makes noise, because the empowerment of the church makes the community say, it's someone there behind me. because the politicians, they only show up when they are ready to be elected. So we know they not going to be behind us, but that physical place that's there in my community that I see every day, I see day in and day out, when it makes noise, then I can stand up and make noise. And I think that we have lost the collective voice because the church will not speak up. The church will not make noise. And when the church is silent, I believe the community is silent. But when the church is loud, the community is loud.
You said we've lost the collective voice, right? We've lost the collective voice, but we have an economy built on individualism. And individualism, me, myself, and I.
Yes.
That's the economy that we've built. So it's only natural for the church to then think, me, myself, and I, just my church.
Because we've lost the direction. And that's the problem. We've lost the synergy. We lost the direction. You know, I think about the scripture, go ye therefore and teach all nations. That's not a go ye and teach some people, but it says everybody. So if we are teaching everybody, then that's a collective community, you know, and we've lost that. We've lost that piece of community. And not all churches, don't get me wrong. There are churches out there that are doing what they need to do, but they are doing what they need to do. It's not a common collective.
Yeah, you want to hear a collective voice somewhere sometimes.
Yes. And I think there are people that are doing it. Dr. William Barber is doing it, the Poor People's Campaign, and churches are moving. But what if every church in America would get behind the Poor People's Campaign? Not just a few here and a few there in this one collective voice and voices. But what if every single faith in America will stand behind the Poor People's Campaign? Then the government would have to listen. Wouldn't be a choice. One voice, one collective. And yeah, we all come to the table with a different message, but we're all going to the same place. And I think that's the part, is that we're so, you know, well, I'm the arm and I'm the leg and I'm the head. No. We're all part of the one body. We all got different functions, but we're all part of one body. And we missed that because we're not able to come to the table and hear the other voices. And so we are disjointed.
So you're saying that you believe that collective power among our church groups can actually make the authorities stand up and listen.
Oh, I believe so.
And take notes.
Yeah. I believe that if every, and I'll say this, if every African-American pastor would stand up today and say, we are going on strike and we are not buying for a whole week in said stores, people would wake up and listen, because the economy would be shaken greater than COVID-19. If we would stop buying as a collective group for 1 week, people will stand up and notice. But you know that won't happen, because somebody said, well, I got to run to the store. But you should have bought the groceries last week. Go borrow it from your neighbor. But we don't want to, again, hear that we don't want to do that. You know, we oh, that happened. We're not back in the 60s anymore. We've moved.
And that's what I was about to say to you. That's what I was about to say to you, because people have that impression that was 20, 30 years ago. We've moved on, we've advanced, and life is better now.
Yeah.
So
but
life is better.
It's not. We see it's not, because if it was, you know, I go back to Dr. William Barber, he would not be out talking about the Poor People's Campaign. He would not be out saying, hey, there are millions of people every day that can't put food on their table. There are millions of children that go to bed hungry at night. There are millions of people that, you know, can't get adequate health care. So clearly we've advanced for the 1% up, but the people in the middle and down are still suffering.
I think it was in 2019, there was some research came out about the growth of food banks in the UK and the role that food banks played in the UK. And it was amazing when you saw the amount of people that were now relying on food banks. And this was before the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, times 10, times 1,000, times 1,000,000 times that going through the pandemic, where people have lost their jobs, they've lost everything, and they can't feed
Yeah.
their families.
Yeah. And in the US, you know, we got a stimulus check here, a little stimulus here, and you know, I don't know how much it stimulated the people.
Well,
Uh,
hey, I was watching CNN, right, and they said the reason why people weren't going back to work was because of the stimulus check they received.
yeah, no, yeah, I was thinking like $1,200 when it first happened. They gave everybody $1,200, and they were like, "This should stimulate and help people with their rent." And I'm saying, truly, you're not connected with the common humankind, because that's probably 1 month's rent for some people, or you know, half of rent, and got to figure out I got to put food on the table. And so it's like Congress is not connected with the common person, just not connected. And so it's, yeah, it's really interesting that you
Well,
can't
the
see.
higher you go up in leadership, you get stuck in
Yeah,
your own world, don't you?
yeah.
You're,
And
you're,
that's
you're,
the
you're,
sad
you're
part.
living in your own
Yeah,
ego. You're living in your own ego
yeah,
of where you are.
yeah. And then
And
you have
therefore,
people, yeah, then you have politicians that said, you know, I connect with the common man because, you know, when I grew up, I lived in, you know, the projects, and
40 years
I
ago.
built myself up, and I went to school, and I had a single mother, and you know, all of this. And I said, but you forgot where you've come from.
Yeah, yes,
You can tell the story well, but
yes.
you've forgotten where you've come from, and you've forgotten that you're at the table, but now you want to leave all your brothers and sisters out of the room.
So you're saying some guys have become very good at telling the story,
Oh,
but
yeah.
doing nothing more than just telling the story.
Nothing more than telling the story.
And so they attract the audience because they're great orators.
Yeah. They want to
Wow.
be liked. It's fashionable to be liked. You know, you get those clicks. You get the, oh, look how many people like what I just said. But nobody really respects you. To be honest, nobody really respects you, because if you even respected yourself, you would be able to hear yourself, and you would do something different.
Wow. So it's almost as if 40, 50 years later, we're back at the starting blocks again,
Yeah,
because you can never leave the poor out.
never.
And we have societies that think because I as a human being have advanced my own life, and I am further than that, everybody has done the same.
Yeah.
But there's gross inequalities in our economies.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
those inequalities aren't helping people to strive. It's dividing people more and more.
Yeah.
So people are getting poorer in real
Every
terms.
day, every day, every day. And it's amazing to me that pre-COVID, um, that if there's a big major event in the city, I've seen this twice in two different major cities, um, that all of a sudden the homeless people disappear.
Wow.
And that was amazing. The first time I noticed it, I was like, oh, I wonder what happened. I just walked down the street, and it's always, you know, this homeless guy over here. Hey, sis, can you spare $1? And for a week, I was like, I wonder what happened to him. You know, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he got off the street. You know, I'm happy for him. 2 weeks later, I saw him, and I was like, hey, where you been? He said, oh, they moved us out of the city
My.
because of the event. And they didn't want us to pollute the city. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. They came around and said, hey, you guys, we want to feed you lunch. You know, get on the bus, get on, you know, took them out beside the city for an event.
Wow. So no real solution, no real
No real
help.
solution. No real
Build.
solution. The city of Dallas has bonded money, and it's been, I'm on a board for a homeless ministry, and I keep telling the executive director that that number is just there. The money's gone. She's like, it never moves. The money never moves. I check it all the time. And I was like, because the money's gone. It's been allocated somewhere else. They just keep the money there, that number there. But we care. We are a society that cares. We're a society that, loves. Our mayor says he understands the plight of homelessness because someone in his family was homeless. And guess what? He hasn't done anything because guess what? He tells a good story because he wants to be liked. But there's no respect.
And okay, you may have answered this. How are people really coping in your state? But you're telling us right now how it's how it's on. And how
It's every day. There are we treat people. We treat animals better than we treat people. And it's a very sad thing when you are unfortunately homeless and in that state, and somebody comes with a dump truck or one of those, big heavy, and takes the little that you have and scoop it up, throw it in the trash, don't even give you a chance to grab some things, but scoops it up and tell you, you need to move. Where am I going? Texas is number 5, I believe, on human trafficking. What are we doing? And so in the midst of COVID, human trafficking went up, homelessness went up. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer. And what are we doing?
The same inequalities that existed before COVID magnified itself during COVID.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so the only place we can go to mobilize every day, man, is back to our churches.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's the only place we have the teeth to mobilize.
Yeah.
To empower our people.
Yeah.
To bring change.
The church that I'm affiliated with every Friday since COVID, and I give great shout outs to my pastor for being a visionary. We have been serving dinners every Friday, 500 people, excuse me, 500 dinners, hot meals, fresh produce, and God has just blessed over and over again. What just started as a little has now become much. But my challenge is there are 68 churches in this neighborhood. We serve 500 dinners. That's a lot. That's an impact. Small impact. What if these 68 plus churches would say, you know what? Every Friday, we are all going to serve. If you do 500, we'll commit to serve 200. We'll commit to serve, whatever size church you have. Now we're not only doing 500, now we're doing 2,000. We're feeding the community.
But what you're talking about is having a culture where we're talking to each other about the needs of our community. And we're not having those kind of conversations.
Of course not. It's me, mine, and that's yours.
And so the same divisions that we see at the top end of our society, it's the same divisions that we've got branding itself inside some of our churches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or we make a whole lot of excuses. Well, I have a small church. Okay, do 50 dinners. Now, but do something. That's the point. Do something. Rally together.
I'm not saying that nothing's happening over here in the UK, that, churches are feeding people, there's homeless shelters. And even before COVID, I knew of churches that were opening their doors to allow homeless people to come in and sleep a couple of nights of the week. And there's buses going around. My constant vibe about this is that whereas these things provide temporary fixes to our society, they're not permanent fixes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, we have a homeless problem. Yep. So at the same time, there's homeless. They're getting a couple of 2 or 3 nights of shelter. Where is there a project now that's going up whereby that housing project is just for people coming off the street,
Yeah.
homeless? That project is to get people off the street. So when you bring them through temporary accommodation, when you bring them through eating temporarily, you then bring them into somewhere permanent and work with them. So it's a constant cycle of helping them developing their own leadership skills to then take charge of their own life.
Yeah. So if you and I can think like that, and you and I can foresee, wait a minute, it's an empty building down the street. It's owned by the city.
We have thousands of empty buildings.
Why are we not housing? Why can't we get a program instead of this little nonprofit over here, this little nonprofit, which I applaud them for doing what they can do. But if the city would say, you know what, we can modify that building and make 300 dorm rooms, 1 floor for families, 1 floor. I mean, if we can come up with something like that, how is it the people at the top won't come up? Because they can, they just refuse to. Again, they tell a good story because they want to be liked and elected, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Those stories are only come to light when the election time, because I need to be liked for the election.
Yes.
Apart from that, no one else is holding me accountable to say, okay, you made those promises 4 years ago. What's happened now?
What's happening now?
So now I'm hearing you when you said the power of the churches. So if my sermon changed on a Sunday, that mobilized my people, said, right, guys, we need accountability in the city now. What's happening?
Yeah.
But the crazy thing about it is that sitting within our congregations are people who are high up in government as well.
Yes.
So we shouldn't have a problem getting challenging policy or finding out what's going on or making an impact to cause real change in the bottom of our society.
Yeah.
And to create a rising tide.
Yeah.
Or we're just happy to say the poor's going to be with us all the time. So you know what?
Let's of course. You know that scripture. Yes, that's scripture. Yes, that's scripture. Yes, misinterpreted, but yes, it's scripture. Yeah, it's sad that, and like you said, it's all over the world that these things are happening. That we have just lost the ability to lead. I go back to that. I go back to the leadership piece. Is that, you know, people talk a good game, tell a good story, but at the end of the day, how much movement, how much is really being done? How much is really helping the people? You know, are we, you know, first you got to take them to the lake to teach them to fish, to give them fish. And then when they get strength, you teach them to fish so they can survive. But you don't just say, oh, you know how to fish now, goodbye. No, you get them to a place where now they can bring somebody else along. That's when you know they're strong enough, when they can reach back and help somebody else. And then you don't let that one go. You reach back and get somebody else. And then that, for me, that's the movement of the symbolism of what the church means to me.
Hey, Rachel says amen. Rachel says amen to that. Amen.
You know, we just don't just, oh, okay, hey, you in here. We always say we got to discipleship people. What does that mean? That I'm gonna walk with you on this journey. I'm not just gonna say, oh, you in the church now, leave you. No, I'm now walking with you on this journey, because it's more than just being, you know, having salvation. It's about discipleship. It's about relationship. And that's the piece that we miss. Like we just say, oh, okay, here's a fish. Okay, you good for the day. You ate. Oh, you had 3 nights of warm. No, that's not leadership. That's not love. And we miss that Because
Wow.
what? We don't have any respect. To go back to that, we don't have any respect.
Man, this is tough, man. This is
Yeah.
tough. This is tough. This is tough, man, because
Yeah.
we're just seeing the inequalities and that are just staring us in the face
Mhm.
and not shifting.
And that's
For
oh
generations, there's
yes.
not shifting. No
There's
real shift taking
yeah,
place.
yeah. We
Some
have become stagnant like the water.
Wow.
Like a body of water that has no outlet. We are stagnant.
Now,
We are not flowing.
I like videos, right? I love
Mhm.
videos because videos help you to remember what was said 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Right? And so the question I'm asking now is what coming out of COVID in 2021, June 2021, that's where we are now. That shift, they want us to come out, they want to revive the economy, they want to bring us out. What does the future look like for ordinary people then? Because if they were
Mm.
down in COVID,
Whew.
and if nothing really changed for them, you gave them one $1,200 check and it didn't really change their life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing that our British government was talking about recently was that there was a moratorium on evictions, private rented accommodation evictions. So now that's been removed. So now landlords can evict people for rent not paid. So imagine the amount of rent that's not been paid because they lost their jobs during COVID.
Yeah.
Now they have the power to evict them. But the economy hasn't yet revived to give everyone the kind of income.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even say pre-COVID because some people were never better off pre-COVID.
Yeah. And the question is when you evict them, because that's all over. When you evict them, who's moving in? Because who has a job? And it's like clearly there are people out there with money. I mean, our housing market is crazy here.
It's booming.
People are paying 30, 40, 50% more to buy a house. I was like, I've never heard of something like that. Maybe I haven't been paying attention. But we can't feed the homeless. We can't help our brother and fellow man. So if you got all this money, why are we not helping each other? Why are we not doing what we need to do? And it's again, one of those. For instance, I look at LA, California. California, and I would say probably has one of the highest, if not
Rich.
the highest, homeless population.
It's a rich state.
Huh? No, I wouldn't even say the whole state of California. I would say the city of Los Angeles County itself
Okay.
probably has the highest homeless than some states. And so my confusion is that the governor is now for people, pushing this thing like, hey, we're putting your name in this pot to win all this money if you got your vaccine. And I'm thinking, can that money go to the homeless people to help them or build buildings and put people in instead of giving somebody $50,000 or $1 million to get their vaccine? That's ludicrous to me.
So, okay, so you're enticing me to get the vaccine by allowing me to win $50,000.
If you don't want to live, that's on you.
But that's what I'm going to say. So if I'm homeless and living on the street and nobody cares about me, why would I even want to bother?
Yeah. And it's everywhere. It's like once they gave somebody $1 million, this drawing for $1 million. And I'm thinking like, really, you could have done a lot to help other people. Those people that are being evicted with that $1 million.
But then if you haven't helped someone to shift their own mindsets and develop their own leadership ability, you give them $1 million. What do you think is going to happen to that $1 million or $50,000?
Yeah,
what do you think is going to happen to it?
It's gone. I'm not helping anybody. I'm going shopping.
It's blown.
Yeah, I'm going shopping. And for the person that probably won, if they've never seen $1 million,
Right, so we need a culture shift. Hey, folks, I don't know where you're listening from. I don't know where you're listening from, right? We've been talking for the past 45 minutes about the shift in leadership. We've been talking about the perspectives, what's been happening to the poor, what's been happening to the homeless in the midst of all this. And now we're coming out, what's going to change, what's been different. We've been talking about the power our churches have, but are they exercising the power to help the poor? We know there are some programs, but are the programs extensive enough to take people off the street, to help them develop their leadership ability? How are we causing the change to happen, and what the future is going to look like for ordinary people, guys? We're talking about this with Dr. Rochelle Carr, and she runs a coffee morning every Thursday. And in that coffee morning, she's helping people to transition and change their GPS. Oh, folks, I don't know where you're listening from, guys, that tune into the Message Talk Show, because this is important. We need to wake up our nation. We need to wake up our sections of our community that are asleep. We need to wake up people who are feeling comfortable in their own positions and shoes, and said there is a greater need that we're ignoring, guys. We're forgetting. Not because you and I, we drive a nicer car and we live in a nicer home and we've moved out of the projects into nicer neighborhoods.
The Jeffersons.
Yeah, nicer neighborhoods. But the problem still exists. It's still there. And we can't be living at large and allowing people to just die in our communities without even stretching a hand to help. Yeah. And to know that the things that we've built when we were poorer, we've now moved away from them because now we have become successful, in inverted commas.
Whew.
Dr. Carr,
yes,
the culture of change, the culture of change, Dr. Carr, to shift. Yeah. And you went somewhere where I stayed away from. You went somewhere where I stayed away from. I had made a decision years ago to just forget and move away from that. You went down the road to the church because for the Black people, that's where our power lies. Yeah. That's where our organization lies. And I was having this very discussion inside the barbershop yesterday about how religious we are. And as a race of people, we are very religious and we spend a lot of time in church. And I'm questioning our productivity levels for the time that we spend congregated in there. How are we changing the society in which we live? What kind of impact is that having? I was having that very discussion with a young man.
Yeah.
Because
and he was having and when you have it with millennials, the thing of it is they're about action. So they're not coming to church. They're not coming to the four wall. They're spiritual. They believe in a higher being, a power. But they're about action. They're about the movement of, why do I need to come in a building, sit and listen, and go out and do nothing? And so that there's a shift, a mind shift that they're making that the old church hadn't caught up with. Because we've made it, and now we can write a check.
It's a haven.
We don't go anywhere. You know, we too sophisticated to go anywhere. I can just send my check to the mission board. I can just send my check to the field. But I'm not doing a mission trip. But what happened to the go? Go is a verb. It's an action movement. And that millennial group is saying, wait a minute, you're not doing what you're saying you're supposed to be doing. So we're going. We're in the field. We're in the trenches. So I don't need to come on Sunday morning to the church. I'm the church out here doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So you're saying that this generation now is going to challenge, coming out of COVID, it's challenging the whole assembly, the whole purpose of assembly of our larger Black institutions that we're creating. That's we honor.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy that we've come so far, but at the same time, gone back so much.
Because the shift has been hollowed.
The shift has been hollowed.
We just scratching the surface of the shift. It looks good, but there's nothing to support it. But the young people saying we're shifting and we got the support because we're doing. It's not about our lip service. We're out there marching. We're out there moving. We're out there feeding. We're out there doing. We're out there calling America. We're out there calling our countries, our society to listen and then make a change.
And last year, I had to sit back and take my hat off to that, because despite some of the stories that were coming out, the stories that were coming out and what you call it now, tainting the whole movement that took place and the organization behind it. There's a lot of stories tainting that.
Yes.
But on the ground, there was a lot of youngsters out there who were pushing to cause change, pushing to change the narrative, pushing, and they're serious.
Yeah.
Despite what anyone says about the organization, despite the motive behind it, there are real people on the ground saying, we want change now.
Yeah.
And we're ready to make this happen. We don't care what it's going to take. We'll sit on the ground for the next 12 months and block the cars to bring the change.
And is there a difference than the 60s?
No. That's what took place in the 60s.
Who were leading those movements? Young people coming from all over, young people, high school, young college students making a change. The difference is then our seniors sat back and said, we're going to follow you.
Yeah.
We're going to stand behind you. We're going to push you. Now, they need to sit down. It doesn't take all of that.
The crazy thing about this, I was having a conversation with a young man. Well, not young man, he's my age. But
young man.
This gentleman was saying to me, he had a real passion for talking about the amount of Black young men in prisons. And he said that the situation wasn't getting any better. And because of the amount of Black young men going to prison and are in prison, the knock-on effect of fatherlessness in our community, the knock-on effect of the cycle repeating itself. So I'm a young man, I grow up, I haven't got a father, and I promise myself that I'm not going to be like my dad because he's a deadbeat, right? Because I promised myself that I'm not going to be a deadbeat, I go out and I do exact same thing that the cycle in my own family. I repeated the same cycle. I get this young lady pregnant. I don't support the family. I end up doing all sorts of things, and I'm repeating the same cycle, even though I'd made a decision that it wasn't going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And this gentleman was talking about the amount of young men that are in prison, and he was saying that we as men weren't doing enough, one, to prevent, and two, to pull out of prison.
Mm.
He was saying that we need something to drag those guys out of prison, drag them out and shake them.
Yeah.
Because until fathers start dragging them out and shaking them, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. And give them hope.
And give them hope.
Yeah. And I think the thing of it is that you could say, as people say, I will not be like my father. I would not, do X, Y, and Z, but you have the residue of your father on you. Right. And so how do we shift that, get that residue off of you? And then it's about being re-educated and empowered. And so he could say this, or even she can say this. I'm not going to get pregnant like my mom at 15. I'm going to go to school, go to college, and bam, it happened. Because the residue of that's all you know, because it has happened, is on you. So how do we now educate and shift, culturally shift those young people to think something different? But we have to educate to empower them so that they'll understand that, hey, okay, I am my father's child. I am my mother's child. but I'm making a shift to do something better. So I can say it, but if I don't know how to make that shift, I'm still going to fall into the same pattern because nobody really taught me how to shift and move. So all I know is I know what I want, I just don't know how to get there. And so that's a disservice because now they're in prison for some, and they'll come out doing the same thing because there's not been a shift. There's not been any education and empowerment. And then to give them steps to say, hey, this is what you need to do. This is how you do it. This is where you go. I mean, it's like, hey, now I'm taking you to the water. I'm going to give you the fish, but now I'm going to teach you to fish. But I'm not going to leave you there. I'm going to stay with you.
Wow. So
that empowerment means I'm going to build this relationship with you, but I'm not just going to leave you because I understand the residue is on you. And any minute now that residue will show up.
Wow. One of the things that you just said about the education to cause the shift. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was coming to my mind during having this conversation with this guy was that the shift that we need to make happen is to educate a generation to take ownership of this. So we need to be in our school system. We need to be in every aspect of life where our young people are on becoming young people. Mm-hmm. We need the education at that point to cause the shift. So they cause the stir in our economy. They cause the stir in our school system. They cause the stir in our university system. They take ownership of that massive shift. Yeah. Because when it comes from them, the one sitting in prison will take note.
And then don't wait for them to come out. Go where they are. Again, that go. Go. Go where they are and help them. So when they come out, the mistakes are not made again.
Well, one thing that's been said is that a lot of church groups have been going into prison for some time now. Yeah. And the comment that was made was that them going into prison and singing songs,
I was
helping these guys.
Look,
I
was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it out loud. Yeah,
that's soothing the pain. It's soothing the pain of where they are, but it's not making them think about what they need to be doing.
Yeah. Or, that once a year Christmas sock that, we fill the sock up with stuff. And I'm thinking like, I'm not stuffing any socks. What are you doing to shift them and move them?
Yeah.
What, like you said, the feel good is good. It's over now. And I go back to my cell and I'm still the same because now the emotion is gone. And I still got to think with my thoughts. I still have to live with, not being able to shift because I don't know how to shift. Because you just told me how to come and clap my hands and sing, but there's no shift that's happening. So if the church would take a different stance on when I go in, I want to sit down and have a conversation. But first, I want to listen. That's what we miss. I want to listen to this young man or this young woman. I want to hear their story. And then when I begin to build a relationship, then I can share to help them shift. I can give practical, applicable application to help them move. And so that's the piece that's missing. We've lost that connection. And again, we want to go in and just make them feel good. And that's going back to the church. We just want people to come to the church and feel good.
Yeah,
hand clapping, foot clapping. And then you go home the same because it's emotional. There's those shifting. It's just emotional. And if we're going to shift.
Well, one could say we've done that for years and now people survived.
We survived because there was an undercurrent of more than just the worship on Sunday. There was a doing. There was a movement. There was a teaching. You know, there was a level of respect that if you got in trouble 5 houses down, by the time you got home, every person on that block has called your mother, grandmother, uncle, everybody, and say, this girl was on the block doing X, Y, and Z. And you already knew, because there was a level of respect in the community. There was a level of respect for your elders. There was a level of respect that your elders even gave you as a kid, even though they didn't want to, but they did. You know, it was reciprocity. It was this level of respect that we had for one another. And I believe that movement, that mindset movement of shifting is now hands off. We're not going to be in the trenches.
We've come full cycle back to what your 9-year-old nephew said. Your 9-year-old wisdom, what he said, you have to earn respect.
Yeah.
Wow, man, we got some things to do, Dr. Rochelle Carr. We got some changes to make. We got some action to take, and we got some shifts to make in our economy, in our school system, in our education system, and in our churches. We're going to take control of the future. You know, we talk and we celebrate Martin Luther King. All the things that he did. We watch the videos and say, great, you know, and it was awesome. But he died.
Mm-hmm.
He died trying to cause change in our economy. He died at the pivotal moment of his life trying to cause change.
Yeah. And how many of us willing to die for this?
Well, that's the question I'm asking now. It's twofold.
Yeah.
Do people have to really die now to cause the change that we're looking for now? Or is it the matter of prepared to die to the things that we hold precious to cause the change in our society?
Yeah, I don't think people have to have a physical death, but they do have to die to the things that are so unnecessary to the movement of getting people to where they need to be. That shift. Because the die itself is gain. You know, to put myself on the back burner so that others, that's leadership. That I put others before me. I want others to go before me because now I can push you. I don't have to pull you, but now I've shifted you to the forefront. So now I can push you into your destiny. I can move you into your destiny.
Woo.
That's leadership.
Woo.
And leadership. And that's what we have to do in the future. We have to begin to pull people that says, I can't, but you know they have the gifts. You know they have what it takes to shake things up. We got to pull them forward and we got to push them out. We got to shift them to the place that they are supposed to be.
We've got to push. We've got to push, guys. Guys, did you hear this? We have got to push people into their destiny. So sometimes we spend a lot of time pulling people and leaving where we pulled them to. And so they get stuck because they're almost, but they're not close enough to help themselves. So you've got to get behind them and push them into their destiny. Push them where they need to go. Dr. Rochelle Carr, man. Oh my God, man. Talk about perspectives. Talk about seeing things. Talking about making things happen. Talking about 12 months from now, could we look back and think, yes, tick box, yes, tick box. This has happened. This has taken place in our community. What do you think?
It will happen. Because we are about to shift people into a different perspective. It's about to happen.
Woo! Man. The power of conversation, the power of making things happen. We have so much to do and so much to offer. But we have gained so much in our lives over the years. And to get to this point, to then sit back and think, I'm retired now. It's cool. I'm retired. I've done my bit. But when you look back in your community and you see the turmoil, you see the poverty, you see you see the enemy of success, really, robbing people of their future. You think, nah, man, we've got to do something.
Yes.
We've got to mobilize a group of men. We've got to mobilize a group of women. We've got to mobilize our school system. We've got to mobilize our government workers. We've got to mobilize all the offices and say, guys, we need to make some change happen that's causing a shift.
Yeah.
Not just a transition.
A shift.
A shift. Because it's our perspectives that's holding us back. It's our mindsets that's holding, you know. Wow, look at the time.
I see.
Look at the time, it's creeping up on us now. Look, as we close, there was a Dr. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset: How to Fulfill Your Real Potential. And she defined two abilities. She said one was the fixed ability and one was a growth ability. The fixed mindset is where people accept where they are, and therefore everything that's happened to them, they either blame someone or accept where they are because they can't see any change. And then the growth mindset, you know, you can work on yourself, you can develop your leadership skills, and you can make things happen to shift you into that zone. But I remember in my own life when I had a fixed mindset. I remember my own life when I was so fixed on things happening one particular way that it almost caused my destruction of my own life because I was so fixed.
Yeah, and we all started someplace, so we all didn't come with a shifting mindset or a growth mindset. We get to that space. And our perspective, the shades come off of our faces, and we see a different perspective, and then we make that shift of growth.
So as we close, you said something just then about shifting the shades to growth. Yeah. What would you recommend to help shift from being fixed to a growth mindset, but those mini shifts that help the shade to shift to growth?
To growth. So I'll leave you with this. Who are you hanging with? Who's around you? And who are you inviting to the table? Because if you are sitting at the table with stagnant people, it's time for you to shift. If you are sitting in a place where you're the only one moving and you are dragging dead weight with you, it's time for you to shift. Because oftentimes we want to bring everyone with us, and that's good. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes you got to go a little further ahead, and you got to allow them to see, or you got to allow yourself to see that, wait a minute, they got a fixed mindset. They don't want to move. They're happy right where they are. I got to go associate myself with people that are growing, that are moving. And that's okay. And you're going to lose some people along the way. But guess what? It's okay. Because when you have a growth mindset, your perspective begins to change. Your attitude begins to change. Your outlook on life begins to change. And you're constantly shifting to a higher level until you dead into your destiny and your purpose. So keep shifting. Keep growing. Open some books. Read some books. Associate yourself with people that are higher than where you are, because that's where you want to go. And when you pass them, find somebody else that's higher and keep growing. Shift.
Well. And we couldn't close better than promoting again Coffee Morning, Coffee Thursday. Just promote Coffee Thursday. 15 minutes of your time.
That's it. Coffee Break Thursday, your 15-minute recharge steps to being your best you. And if you are out of the country, we have a country code to get you in. And come and join us, and we will be happy. Connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to send you your country code, because, like I say, it's 15 minutes of empowerment to help you shift to the space that you need to be.
15 minutes of empowerment to help you shift to the space that you need to be. It may just be a mini shift, guys. A mini shift. Tune in. So, how can people connect with you?
They can email me at drshell@pfempowerment.com. They can connect on our website at www.pfempowerment.com. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Dr. Rochelle Carr. So connect. Let's shift together.
Connect and connect. And you know connections work?
Yes.
Connections work, Dr.
Yes,
Carr.
they do. Yes.
Connections work, Dr. Carr. Because I can say we connected on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I've just been watching your LinkedIn feed just explode with comments, explode with conversations, people just stepping in and talking and conversing about leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes.
You can't go nowhere without leadership. And if we don't take it into our hands to create better leaders and become better leaders ourselves, we will go to the grave with our dreams and ideas still in our heads.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Oh, my. Thank you so much. Someone dropped, thank you so much for sharing today. This has been amazing. It's been awesome. You've been listening to the Message Talk Show with Dr. Carr, a leadership expert, a leadership consultant who speaks on leadership from the heart, from the soul, because she wants to see change. She wants to help brought change. And she goes back to our roots. Now, you see, there are times in my life when I kind of shift from my roots and I think, yeah. Don't go there. But she went back to our roots, man. She went back and saying, you know what? Let's go back to some of our churches, man. That's where we started. That's where we came from. That's where we pushed. That's where we made change happen. We need to go back and wake up our churches, guys, to what's happening, to where we should be going and what should we be doing. Guys, so tuning again to the Message Talk Show, because you will be touched. You will be empowered with guests like Dr. Rochelle Carr on the coffee morning on a Thursday. Now, there was one thing she said earlier, and that was, she was dropping a word for me there when she said it's 5 o'clock in the morning. All right. So in where Dr. Carr is, there's a 5-hour difference. Yes.
Yes.
So when our show goes at 11 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. She's waking up at 4 o'clock just to come and deliver this for you guys across the world. Isn't that amazing? So when your coffee morning starts at what time in Texas?
11:59 Central Standard Time.
Central Standard Time. So that's about 16:59 British Standard Time. So that's in the evening for us. So that's not too bad, right? Yeah. So she was dropping a word for me that she had to wake up at 4 o'clock this morning. But was it not worth it, guys? Was it not worth it? Put a 1 in the chat now. Post what you've learned today. Post an extract, post a comment, post one word that you have received today, one action that you're going to take from listening to this broadcast, from tuning into the Dr. Rochelle Carr. And before we go, let me just go to the sponsor.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and podcast with host Alex Gordon.
Isn't that amazing? You got one here. A 1 was posted straight away. Rochelle posted a 1. She posted a 1. She posted a 1 that she's been impacted and she's going to take some action. And she says, hey, we might have to connect. Hey, man, coffee morning is there. Coffee morning, coffee Thursday. Guys, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for taking the time out just to spend some time with us to understand where we are and where we're going. Come back again on the Message Talk Show with Alex Gordon.
miss the show. You got to be on the show.